This is Big T. Welcome to Big T Studios. For the most part, I use my computer as an oversized, overglorified word processor more than anything. I could probably use Kwrite, but my office suite go-to is LibreOffice. There's a lot I could talk about this. I've used this LibreOffice in place of Microsoft Office since the late 90s. It used to be called Star Office, then it changed to Open Office, and somewhere around 2010, Oracle ticked off enough programmers in the Open Office group that they left the Oracle party and forked off with the open source code and made their own version and just called it LibreOffice. It's still the same underlying code that it's been since Star Office. So who knows how long this will last, but the fact that it's been kicking around since the 90s tells me it's probably going to be alive in some form or another for a long time to come. Now, I've used the word processor, the spreadsheet, and the database program more than the others. There's a drawing and a presentation and a math. Sometimes I get lost in the words, but I don't do very many PowerPoint presentations, so I've not really sweated whether I could use it. The math suite, I've not really done anything with it. Now drawing, I've used it a time or two just because it's fun to tinker with. It's not the end all be all, but when I'm putting together simple ideas, sometimes I like to map things out, and that drawing program works just fine for that. Now, most Linux distributions install LibreOffice by default. They, for some reason, take out the database component, which annoys me to no end. But if you want to use the database component, you have to sometimes, on different distributions, take a few extra steps. At least with this CachyOS script, it installs the full version, and I'm happy about that. If you like, you can go through the welcome setup on LibreOffice. Now, I've used standard toolbars for years. I don't see any reason to change just because Microsoft did. The great thing is you get to choose how this looks. Now, I'm bouncing through this and I'm not really loving the dark theme for my office suite. I see that I can make some changes. I'm not wowed by the icons and the monochrome. The problem, I find this out later, I don't fix this during this video, but it's actually related to the KDE desktop theme controls. It's not got anything to do with LibreOffice, but I sure am plowing through it, trying to see if I can separate Microsoft Office from what it looks like, or not Microsoft Office. Trying to separate LibreOffice from its settings. But no matter what I change, it's not going to let me change. I see a simple restart didn't really change what I was wanting changed. I'll type a little. Let's see, let's Control E to center the title. Let's make the font bigger. Let's make it bold. Let's save it in a document folder. The OS is not pestering me to save to OneDrive, thank God. If I want something on OneDrive, I'll put it there. Back when Microsoft crashed daily while working on Office documents, I might have understood the benefits of OneDrive. But OneDrive uses a lot of CPU cycles, and that's my electric bill, to interrupt my workflow to send my files to a cloud server that Microsoft then sifts through to figure out what I want to see advertised on my desktop. Truth is, I want nothing advertised on my desktop. It eats up my electric bill, my battery life if I'm on a laptop. The electric company then gets to charge me more for electricity to watch an ad that I never wanted to begin with. My internet service provider then gets to charge me more for the extra gigabytes worth of data for all the shuttling of information back and forth that I never asked for. In urban areas, internet's pretty good. It may even be unlimited where you live. I don't get unlimited. I get 60 gigabytes of data at high speed. And then the rest gets slowed down to almost dial-up level. It's a nuisance, but it's what I live with being in rural America. Now, think about how Microsoft gives you 5 gigabytes and it fills up fast. With every photo and video that you have on your computer that Microsoft wants to push to OneDrive, every time you make that correction, it's pushing that data back and forth. 5 gigabytes fills up fast. And if it moves all 5 gigabytes worth of data per day, then I'd have only 12 days of high-speed data just for the OneDrive alone. Then if I do things with my computer that I'm paying for, on my internet that I'm paying for, my high-speed internet dies quickly. Microsoft, leave me alone. Now, getting back to Linux. Don't get me started on a Microsoft rant. Getting back to Linux. In Windows, the file explorer is called Windows Explorer. How wonderful, how thoughtful. In Mac, it's called Files. On the KDE desktop in Linux, it's called Dolphin. I don't know why. I don't know why, and I don't really care. Just like File Explorer, you can click around and you can see, you can click around and seek files in different locations on your system. In this case, I have an external hard drive. Yeah, that's easier for me to use than Microsoft OneDrive. I have an external hard drive that I have named Samples. Clicking on it brings up a demand for a password. Once given, Dolphin will let me interact with those files. Now, going back to LibreOffice, here's the spreadsheet program. The underlying math works the same, but some of the built-in formulae may be a little different. So the programmers at LibreOffice have tried to make it one-to-one for Microsoft Excel, and that's fine. I've had hiccups with formula and some formatting in the past, but mostly I use this program in my own house with my own company. I'm not prone to sharing my spreadsheets. So most of the time, this is for my benefit, not for the world audience. So I don't care if it matches up one-to-one with Microsoft. I'm not wanting to share with Microsoft. So I don't get hung up on whether or not I have direct compatibility. Can it? Yes. Is it perfect? I've heard people make it clear that it's not perfect. So there you go. temper your expectations. Now, as an example, let's put together a formula for counting the cost of clips. Could be paper clips as big as I am, could be chip clips. I like doing a small, simple formula so that I can do the math in my head and see that I've got everything correct before I fill in cells to monitor this stuff. It just makes getting my head in the mathematical frame of mind, because I sometimes forget my dear Aunt Sally, and when you're typing these formula and spreadsheets, the parentheses placement makes all the difference in the world. Okay. Now, as you can see, I flub, and that's why it's good to check yourself just to make sure you're getting this right. Let's go back to the database program. Now, just like Microsoft Access, this can make an internalized database. The nuts and bolts are the same. You've got tables, queries, forms, and reports. You can build an entire business solution out of this software just for yourself. Again, I'm not thrilled with this dark theme. So, like I said, you've got everything here to build a solution for tracking anything that you want to. I'm still looking for a solution to dark LibreOffice. Like I said, I found out later that this has nothing to do with LibreOffice or even the graphics card. It's saying check your graphics card. While I'm fishing around for the explanation, this is where Linux can be scary for the uninitiated. There's a lot of searching, and sometimes answers don't work. Be ready for that. But I remember having to scour the web for answers in the early days of Microsoft as well. Matter of fact, 4 years ago, I started using CachyOS, and I'll throw this in. Having been a long-time Windows user, I was used to doing things a certain way. Everybody says the magic phrase, well, if you have a Mac just works. I'll nail that in the coffin right now and say, no, it doesn't. If you're used to doing something a certain way, it doesn't just work. You have to learn the way that it does it, and you have to get used to working with it. And Linux is no different. There are things that you're going to have to learn, and I don't want to say unlearn, but it just works different than Windows. But it does a good job of what it does do. So don't be afraid to go searching for stuff, and don't be afraid of a little bit of failure. It happens even in Windows. Now, this is a good example. Right here is one of the best examples I've seen in a while. This is a good example of the web not always being correct. It says the fresh KDE implementation package. Now I'm trying to remove a package that doesn't even exist. Now, a quick note about the difference between desktop with a capital D, desktop, and the .desktop file that it's referencing here. In Linux, anytime the dot is before a file name or a folder name, it just means that it is hidden from regular view. The keyboard command to show and hide hidden files is Control-H. And I don't go fishing around hidden files very often, but in the early days of setting up something or setting up a new program, sometimes you do have to work with hidden files. That Control-H is good for turning off and on. Now, I'm spending too much time trying to fix something visual rather than something functional. Right here, sometimes it's just best to move on. And you can stumble into answers while working through a different problem. As far as your setup goes, walk away from stuff sometimes and just see what's working. Let's look for an email client. Today, most users are using web-based email like Gmail or Hotmail or Outlook or MSN Mail. I don't know what they're calling it today. So not everybody's using a desktop email client. This is where Mail for Mac OS or Outlook, the Office Suite version, not that crap they stick on Windows, comes into play. Now, in Linux, I've used GNOME as my desktop a lot longer than I've used any other desktop. And because of that, I've come into contact with Evolution. GNOME has Evolution. KDE has something called Kmail, but I've never used it. I'd be lying if I said I did. I've used Thunderbird, which is like Mozilla's Firefox. Mozilla made Thunderbird. And I've used Thunderbird quite a bit. Thunderbird and Evolution are the two I've run. But I'm not seeing anything on CachyOS. Maybe I'm doing the command line wrong. Well, right there it says a command line, run mail. I'm not familiar with run mail, so I'm not gonna. I'll probably never try it. Like I said, this being a test system, I'm not gonna bet everything into it to try it. But I know Thunderbird can do whatever I need, and it works with KDE or any other desktop environment. Firefox works on all desktop environments in Linux. I'm not aware of any desktop environment that it does not work in. And Thunderbird's the same. It doesn't matter which desktop environment it's in, it's just gonna work. Now, let's see. Bouncing around, I'm not seeing GIMP. To me, GIMP is the Photoshop for Linux, but without all the costs. If it was good enough for James Cameron to use to alter images in Titanic, then I think it's good enough for me to take red eye out of the occasional photo. I don't do a whole lot of work with GIMP, but when I need to edit something, an image, I do like having it. It's like a mainstay. It's good to have it on the system already. So I'll go ahead and get that installed. Now, because I do music production, I have large libraries. In Windows and Mac, they're called plugin libraries. And these plugin libraries work in Reaper or, for the most part, any digital audio workstation in Windows or Mac. But most plugin manufacturers do not have installation scripts for Linux or any Linux support at all. And I'd not be surprised if Microsoft and Apple don't squeeze them out a little bit of money to keep them from putting together a Linux solution. Kind of like how Microsoft paid to get Corel to quit making a Linux version of WordPerfect Office for Linux. So what I'm looking for is a wine compatibility layer. Wine means Windows is not emulated, but it's been in development since the 90s, and the idea is that it is supposed to be able to run a Windows program on Linux. It's not perfect, it's not even close. It can run Notepad, but nobody's installing Wine to use Notepad. Wine has had limited success with some Office software. I think Microsoft Office version 2003 can work with Wine. I think Windows 2000 can work with Wine. But Microsoft Access is the one program that definitely fails in Wine. So Wine is not always perfect, but it can do some things. Now, the plugin libraries are hit and miss. To use the libraries in Linux, I have to use Wine and another program called Yawbridge. Yawbridge worked great with Linux and plugins until Wine version 9.22, and it has not worked since. This is probably the one thing that actually keeps me from leaving Mac and Windows systems for music production. These are specialized software solutions that just do not have a Linux counterpart. And I've spent years building this library up, and I've got money invested in it, so I can't just walk away from Mac OS or Windows. So, after searching how to find the Wine version on my system, CachyOS, I see that no Wine is installed at all. By typing in the install command for Wine, I can see that it is going to install the most up-to-date version of Wine. 9.22 is where Yawbridge quit working. We're at version 11.2. I'm curious to see if Wine got so good that everything will just work. I mean, that's 9.22 to 11.2. We've been through all the way through Windows, the Wine version 10, and I'm ready to see if this can install better now. Now, typing Wine CFG, WINE-CFG, it's the startup command to configure Wine to work. Now, I like going to the graphics and increasing the font size. I'm blind as a bat, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. That's just a personal preference. After closing out the program and reopening it, we can see that everything is a little bit easier to see. Now, back in my samples drive, I have some downloads that we can test. I like going to the, back in my samples drive, look at that, scratching my nose on screen. Back in my samples drive, I have some downloads to test, and I have the instructions because it's very nuanced, and I forget every time I test another system. Now, I'm going to make a big mistake by attempting to install Native Access 2. There are sites that explain that to install Native Instruments programs, I have to use a legacy Windows 7 installer to get it to process through the system. Of course, that was with old Wine. Let's see if the new Wine can do better. Now, Native Instruments has hidden the legacy version for Windows 7. They don't want people using it for whatever reason. Let's just call it like it is. They're being buttholes. Now, I have a copy saved, but I always hope with each new version of Wine that the newer version of Access will actually just work with Wine. So let's try that first. I can right click on it and it chooses to open with Wine. Well, this is looking good. This is looking good. I've never made it this far. The real hang up is not whether the program can install with Wine. Actually, if I had the in the case of Native Instruments, if I had a contact installer, the individual executable file, it would install and it would install with no problems. The problem is this installer with Native Instruments just can't get past the installation process to get me where I need to be. And it's one of the pains of working with Wine and working with programs that try to utilize Wine. So it's asking for permission, but Wine runs with administrative privileges for installing these programs. So this is a hiccup. I thought I did a little research. And it's showing how it's supposed to work, but to install from a terminal, I have to find the path folder. Let's try to grant privileges by adding admin to the path, as the internet suggests. Well, this didn't work, as is sometimes the case. Sometimes there's just not a straightforward answer. So let's move on. Let's move on to editing a movie in Linux. First, I need to transfer some files to the machine from my iPhone. The mere act of plugging my phone in, that does not seem to be doing anything. So let's search for a solution. First solution is KDE Connect. Well, I'm using KDE. Whoop, its first movie is called Local Send. Well, while I was watching this, I was also fingering around on my iPhone, and I found the KDE Connect app on the App Store. I tried this a few times, but I never could get it to work for me. So I'm gonna give up on connecting, but I know what I can do. Let's just edit a movie project in DaVinci Resolve on Linux, and I can edit the screenshots, recordings at least. Now, I have my own logo movie. It's just a 10-second clip. Well, drag and drop didn't work. Let's try importing. Well, I didn't grab the logo clip either that time. That's strange. Well, at least now that this other movie's here, let's drag that into the timeline. This is not working. Let's try right-clicking and creating a new timeline clip. We'll name it. We're playing the timeline now. Nothing is happening. Let's go to the web and see if the fact that it is a .mov file is the problem. Well, here's our problem. The free version lacks support for H.264 and H.265 and the AAC audio format. So video and sound both are hampered by this. I love you guys for checking this out, but I'm not paying for DaVinci Resolve for the sake of testing. Let's try one more movie test. Let's try the MP4 video from OBS screen capture. I mean, OBS is on Linux. Again, another bust. And sometimes you just cannot get some things to work as you wish that they would. With the MP4, I thought that it was odd that it was recorded within the OS rather than on the iPhone, and DaVinci Resolve still wouldn't play it. So I'm going to leave it with this. I still stand by my statement that Linux is good for anybody doing office work, programming work, or surfing the web. These are perfectly capable things to do with Linux. Again, I'm on an older machine, so if you've got a computer that is doing everything you want it to do for you and you're not creating videos and music production with plug-in libraries, Linux is going to be fine for you. Don't throw away your old computer just because you can't use Windows 10. On a side note, I'm going to tell you I've never updated my Windows 10 computer at home because I don't do any banking. I don't put sensitive information on it. It's more toy than anything else, and it still works. So if you're getting satisfaction out of your computer without upgrading to Windows 11, stick with what you've got. It's going to be just fine. And Linux, if you want to take the leap into it, I encourage you to try it. Ain't no sense in throwing a perfectly good computer in the landfill if it does what you want it to do. Linux can do quite a bit, and it can do it quite well. This has been Big T. Thanks for watching, and I know this has been a long video. I'll try to edit it for time. I may even split this up. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe and come back and visit me. I'll see if I can find solutions to some of this stuff, and some of it's never going to have a simple solution, but it doesn't mean it's unusable. Thanks for taking the time to visit me. Hit like and subscribe. Come back and see me again. This is Big T.